Welcome to Vilnius and its difficult language. We check into our hotel, the Kempinski Cathedral Square. The hotel is just across the street from Cathedral Square, where Vilnius started. The story of Vilnius starts in the late Middle Ages, laying the groundwork for a great union of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland. The Commonwealth reached its height in the 15th century. After that, it was war and partition. Vilnius was part of Russia for the next 200 years, except for brief periods of independence. In 1315, Grand Duke Gediminas was out hunting at the confluence of the Vilnia and Nervis rivers, when a pagan priest foretold that the place would be the capital of Lithuania. He named it Vilnius after the river that flowed nearby. Evidence of fortifications on the hill overlooking Cathedral Square date back to the 10th century. Gediminas Tower dates to 1422 and has become a symbol of the city. When Grand Duke Jogaila of Lithuania married Queen Jadwiga of Poland in 1386, it would start an alliance that would last almost 400 years. So what is it like to be the Grand Duke? We're visiting Trakai Castle to find out. The castle was completed in 1409, but the guards are barring our entry. The jester knows the password. We enter to the outer courtyard with a display of 15th century torture devices. Then across the moat to the castle keep. Restoration of the castle started in 1951 and was completed in 1961, and now it's a major tourist attraction. A brief tour takes us to the treasury. Here we meet our host, Grand Duke Vytautas the Great. On the wall is a painting of the Battle of Grunwald, with Vytautas in red and the King of Poland in white. In the battle in 1415, the forces of Poland and Lithuania decisively defeated their old nemesis, the German-Prussian Teutonic Knights. Now we sit down to dine on tables overflowing with food, and we feel like 15th century royalty. Our entertaining evening ends with a beautiful sunset over the lake. No wonder the Grand Duke liked this place. The Gate of Dawn was built between 1503 and 1522. Of the 10 city gates, this is the only one remaining. In the 16th century, gates often contained religious artifacts to guard the city and bless the travelers. The chapel of the Gate of Dawn contains the icon of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of Mercy. Back in Cathedral Square, we're visiting the Palace of the Grand Dukes. It's directly behind the cathedral. The current building is a reconstruction. Started in 2002, it officially opened to the public in 2013. The original palace dates from the 15th century, but it was demolished in 1801. Extensive archaeological digs uncovered its foundations. To get us into that medieval mood, we're entertained in 15th century style. The palace's rooms contain period pieces and reproductions. There are extensive informational displays about the various Grand Dukes who lived here. And it wouldn't be a palace without a throne room. The view from the cupola is one of the best in Vilnius. That's the modern buildings of the business district. This direction looks out toward the University of Vilnius, our next stop. The University of Vilnius was founded in 1579, making it one of the oldest in Northern Europe. The bronze door of the university library commemorates the first printed book in Lithuanian. The library was founded in 1570, 9 years before the university. This reading room is the oldest part of the original library complex. When the hall was being refurbished and restored in 1929, this fresco was discovered. It shows this Virgin Mary sheltering the founders of the university. At the top of these columns are the university's old observatory, founded in 1753. Inside, vintage telescopes are on display. In the White Hall of the library, we get a performance of women singing Sautertines, Lithuanian multi-part folk songs. Back in Cathedral Square, it's time to learn about the cathedral. In 1522, the bell tower was built on top of one of the lower castle's defensive towers. The cathedral as it appears today was completed in 1783, but it rests on the site of 3 earlier cathedrals. The Baroque appendage on the neoclassical cathedral is the St. Casimir Chapel, completed in 1692. The neoclassical architecture seems austere. Then we enter the St. Casimir Chapel. The room is completely covered with Baroque stucco work, Swedish sandstone, and frescoes. Pardon the pun, but we're going for Baroque. It's the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul. It's considered a masterpiece of Polish-Lithuanian commonwealth Baroque. The exterior was completed in 1676. It was consecrated in 1701, and the interior was finished in 1704. The oddly modern-looking boat-shaped chandelier was installed in 1905. The Rococo pulpit was installed in 1801-4. There are 2,000 stucco work figures in the church. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth reached its largest extent in 1619, covering not just Poland and Lithuania, but most of present-day Belarus and Ukraine. Starting in 1648, wars with its neighbors devastated the country. Vilnius was occupied by Russian forces during the Russo-Polish War and looted by the Swedish army in the Great Northern War. By 1795, the Commonwealth was partitioned between the Russian Empire, the Habsburg Empire, and the Kingdom of Prussia. The current presidential palace dates back to the 14th century when it was built as the Bishop's Palace. It was rebuilt in 1750 and became the residence for the Imperial Russian governor. The 19th century was marked by civil unrest. In 1831, the Vilnius University was closed. In 1861, the Russian army occupied Vilnius to suppress protest. Russian repression halted the development. On February 16, 1918, this modest house on Pilies Street is where the Act of Independence of Lithuania was signed by 20 members of the Council of Lithuania. What followed was 3 years of war, known as the freedom struggles, until Lithuania's independence was internationally recognized. Vilnius had a thriving Jewish community, centered in the Jewish quarter of Old Town. According to a Russian census of 1897, Jews were 40% of the population of Vilnius. During World War II, almost all Jews still in Lithuania were killed, the highest casualty rate of of Jews in any nation in the Holocaust. Lithuania emerged from the war as a Soviet Socialist Republic, part of the USSR. The earliest Baroque church in Vilnius, St. Casimir, was converted to the Museum of Atheism by the Soviets. Today, the KGB headquarters building in Vilnius houses the Museum of Occupation and Freedom Fights, dedicated to documenting the 50 years occupation of Lithuania by the Soviet Union. On March 11, 1990, Lithuania seceded from the Soviet Union. The following year, on January 13th, the Soviet Union sent in troops and attacked the State Radio and Television Building and the Vilnius TV Tower, killing 14 civilians and seriously injuring 700 more. In September 1991, the Soviet Union finally recognized Lithuania's independence. Today, Vilnius is a thriving city of over 500,000 people with modern buildings sprouting next to Gothic masterpieces. It's a city with a sense of humor and some really great food. Our plane waits to take us to another former Soviet Socialist Republic. For what promises to be something completely different, we're headed to Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan.